More head, no more flicks over the head. Make that's an immediate match suspension. Oh boy. All right. God damn. Yeah, that thing looks expensive. Welcome
I got
back.
it for free.
Wow. All right. Well, welcome back to Soundwaves from the Sea, your weekly Circling Seattle Sports, Seattle Sounders FC show, podcast, whatever you like to call it. I think, and I'm realizing this now, unfortunately, that my voice is being affected by the play-by-play I did at the UW women's hockey game the other night.
Oh,
So I sound like this now. We'll see how
yeah,
that
let's
goes.
go.
Um, that's why I've got T to the side here with Owen Murray, of course, from Area Sports Network. Sound of nope, I keep doing that. House of Sounders. I need to like take the sticker from my bookcase and put it right in front of my laptop all the time, I guess.
I'll
Um,
have it up for you every time.
there you go. Um, Owen said something before we started that is very accurate, and it's this is another week, just like we saw last week, with Antigua in the first leg of the round one CONCACAF Champions Cup matchup, and then the MLS regular season home opener for the Sounders against Charlotte, where it's kind of two different matches with two different teams, you know. So, as we got the second leg of that first round matchup against Antigua here in Seattle. Seattle was able to pull away with that one. Really felt like they should have had a lot more than just the final score, but I think what it was 6-2 on aggregate at the end of it,
Yeah. Do we
which
have an XG number for that?
um hmm?
I'll see if I can find it. I wonder
six to
what the
two.
XG, but I
Oh,
remember looking at
oh,
that and
yes.
I was just like, don't
Yeah,
worry about
no.
it.
Owen and I
But
were
it
looking
was
at this match and it was like this, yeah.
should have been six.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
easily. I
which is
mean,
a good sign and a bad sign, right?
yeah, I think so. I was thinking about this when we were listening to the Antigua manager, and then we heard Brian come in, and I was thinking about this the whole time. I was like, in what was the first competition you've played in this year, right? Because it was their first
Yeah.
match of the year. Like, and I kind of carry this into a little bit the RSL match, but we'll get to that when we get there. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not concerned about it right now. Like and I said this last year, to an extent where I'm like, you've got these guys, like, yes, as we talked about in our first ever episode, like the chemistry is there with a lot of them, right? But like with how they're playing, with how they're integrating some of their new pieces and how they want to, handle, the match to match changes, right? Because there'll be a lot of them. Like I will be really interested to see at the end of the year how many different lineup combinations they use.
Absolutely.
Um, like I'm not worried about it right now, which is a dangerous thing because I realized I said that about the finishing throughout the course of last season, and then it didn't really ever click, right? Like we'd see
Yeah.
spurts of it. Um, but at least right now, like I'm not super like hold the alarm. Like, yes, you need to do better, but in this regard, you did well enough to handle business against a solid club, and you move on. Will that fly against Cruz Azul? Probably not, right? But I mean, I don't know. This was a fun match. It was fun to see Pedro get the brace, right? Um, it was nice to see Andrew Thomas in goal. Like,
Mm.
I think in all of like the discussion that's had, and maybe it's just me, right? But like all my discussion with this club is like seeing the consistency on the back line, right? You talked about that, how the
Yeah.
back line might suffer a bit this season with how much they're going to be scoring and how much you want to keep up with that. Like Danny Leva's played, I think, every minute. Almost, well, I don't know about the RSL match, but he played every minute going into the RSL match.
Mm.
Um, Nope, he didn't start in this one. Got it. Yep. Okay. He played every minute going into the RSL match. You've got Jesus Ferreira and Paul Areola that, have been a lot of the talking to Pedro. Like, I forget that Andrew Thomas was a guy that was such a big headline early into last season, and then last May, I had to look this up, two episodes ago that they signed him to that extension.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like feels like he's kind of quieter because Stephen Fry continues to be consistent, continues to play at a strong level. I don't know. It was just nice to see him out there. Um, Not too much from the bench in this one outside of Kalani Kosarienzi. Yeah. Getting signed to a short-term loan ahead of this one and then coming in the 82nd minute. Um, yeah, no, I mean, it was just nice to see them put this one away. See Pedro score. I think I texted Owen this, the first goal that he scored in the 24th minute was his first goal at home. And I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, I didn't realize that. He
Because
gets
I
turned on.
remember I took a friend to the one where we thought the last group
Yes.
stage game last year where we thought he scored, and I was sitting down in the north end and we thought he scored, and my buddy was psyched because he isn't a Sounders fan but loves Pedro de La Vega, and then it was offside, and it was a great goal. But yeah, to see that he really hadn't scored at home showed how much he's struggled.
Yeah, and like we'll get to this in sort of some takeaways. Well, after some takeaways, but we had a big match, and like we wouldn't have talked about it if he didn't say anything about it. Probably it would probably just been going over the matches, some takeaways, and we get into next week, right? But after the match, Brian Schmetzer, like really quickly after his like opening statement, basically said that Pedro needed to be more disciplined, and I was like, all right, like after in a vacuum, right? I'm using that a lot lately.
Yeah,
Two
yeah.
match, 2 goal night. Like we're talking really good about a player, but we'll get to that. I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Okay.
But um, anything else from Antigua? Again, I think it was just one where they were able to put this one away, which was good to see. Doing it at home is nice. And now we get to deal with Cruz Azul. So
Yeah, I mean, I really liked the role Jesus Ferreira had. I was texting you during the game about this one. I thought he looked fantastic, especially in kind of a deeper role. It reminded me a little bit, in a different way of what Albert did coming from RSL to Seattle
mm,
originally, where he kind of took a step back. Jesus Ferreira has kind of taken a little bit of a step back from that number nine spot into the number 10 where he can play. And he was there on Wednesday, and I thought he looked fantastic. I thought his ball progression was amazing. I was texting you that he looked like good old uh, advanced eight Bernardo Silva, and I went and looked at
yes.
I went and looked at some heat maps. So I pulled up Bernardo Silva's heat map from
Oh,
the Champions League final that City won, and then I pulled up Ferreira's from Wednesday night, and they looked very similar. So I feel vindicated.
yeah.
But I went and pulled up a couple spots, and I was like, not only does he have that obvious chemistry with Areola, but his ball progression ability, because he'd be all the way back, in between the center circle and the top of the 18-yard box, picking up balls off the center backs and really driving it. Um, which is what we'd like to see from Pedro de La Vega sometimes. So we can talk about that. But I thought it was an interesting, different option at the number 10 spot than we've seen from a guy like Albert or even a guy like Nico. I think that's something to explore going forward. I was really, really impressed.
Yeah, and I mean that goes into the depth, right? To be able to do that, to be able to switch around things, to like it will be really to go into the lineups as well, like to be able to see how they utilize these players' skill sets in roles maybe we didn't anticipate early on, right? Like there was certain times I looked down from our view in the press box and I was like, wait, what? It's coming from pretty deep. Like this is not where I would have anticipated. Um, so I don't know. It's just so fun, especially with that second match Antigua lineup to be like, oh yeah, Jesus Ferreira and Paulo Ariola are coming off the bench for you to like put this game on ice. Like that is a fun that is a fun luxury to have. Um, I say fun, and then there's this RSL match, which is just bad. Just flat out, I think
It's
bad.
not fun.
No. So yeah, that Antigua match was on Wednesday. Nice midweek match, 7:30 on Lumen. Then we get to Saturday, the first away match of the MLS regular season slate for the Sounders at Classic RSL, a place Seattle has really historically struggled in good old Sandy, Utah at America First Field. And to say the fact that the Sounders have after this new who own goal had conceded own goals in back-to-back MLS matches is just Yeah, Owen. I
I
mean, even just seeing it happen.
It's just the way in which this game. I mean, at a certain point, you expect the Sounders to struggle there, and you say, "Hey, this is a really
Yeah.
difficult place for them to go play." It's the bogeyman, uh, like LAFC was,
Yeah.
but if they're gonna lose there, it's got to be a competitive game. It's got to be you got to say, "Hey, we did what we could," um, and still lost. This team did not play its best game. This team, really, really struggled and then shot itself in the foot within the first, 20 minutes. Um, it's disappointing because the one thing that I will shout out is that the changes were made early. It's something
Mm.
we've talked about a lot, and Brian Schmetzer at the half went and made his two changes. I thought they looked good in the first 20 minutes. They just couldn't convert chances.
Which, yeah, that's why, like, I think I kind of had the half approach on my concern there because, the aspirations for this club are much higher than um how they kind of went on that deep surge last year, right? Where they were just kind of
Mm.
in the lower end of the Western Conference playoff seeds, right? And then they were able to push up and they ended up what, fourth, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Um, like I would really hope we're not later in the season coming back to this and saying you needed points here. Like I really don't want to have to do that. But as someone who was a defender primarily for his playing career, seeing the new who own goal, I'm watching this like this is a Zapruder film. It's horrible. Like this I think they really could have gotten out of this with just a draw. Like I would have been fine with a scoreless draw. This ball into the box is going right at Stephen Fry. This is an easy collect and maybe an advancement considering that the Sounders, had some numbers in front of them. Like, and then the second goal that they gave up, which is also kind of just stupid because it's a goal that comes right off a ball from the keeper and it's like one or two passes and then he's free on Steph. Like this is just it's horrible.
Yeah, I think the
Um,
most frustrating thing about that is that Yamar had been doing a great job all day. I had people
yeah.
texting me like, "Wow, Yamar's like make this guy look like a bum," and then he's just able to get straight through there. And the laps and the I think that it was the speed that really killed him. But
Mm,
it's the first game I've watched from him, but I don't think he'll be a great number nine. I think he struggles to finish. I think he's physically not that great. Um, and yet he was able to get through. And to his credit, he had a really nice finish in the bottom left-hand corner. Nothing Stephen Fry could do about it.
yeah. I mean, so I guess with this match, before we kind of get into some takeaways about relating to these, is what's more frustrating to you? Is it how they conceded the two goals, or just the general fact that they were shut out?
Absolutely, they were conceded. I think that, like you were saying, this could be a 0-0 draw. And while it wouldn't be satisfying, it would be okay and it would be a point. Um, and it would keep this team on some sort of roll. Now you have to go play one of the best Mexican teams out there after conceding two demoralizing goals. And I really do think that matters on short rest. Um,
Yes.
I think the finishing is something that we need to talk about.
Hmm.
But there were at least chances that this team shouldn't have conceded two goals, and yet it did.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and we can just get into that. Like with because one of my things was the lapses. Like this is another situation where we go into a week like we were saying where it's like positive match in CONCACAF Champions Cup, uh demoralizing result in MLS regular season play, and I don't like a pattern there. I would like to not form a pattern there, and I don't think we will, considering again who you're going to play um in your next contest. Like it's not it's not possible. um and like I think I talked about this actually in our like hot takes or like look at the season. Oh
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I didn't re I did not realize as I'm looking at this now that your next two matches are Cruz Azul and LAFC. Like there are no soft landings for you after the screw ups that you had at RSL. Like, oh my God. That is so brutal. Um, Goodness. Okay, sorry. I'll get back to this. Uh, it's a hard reality. Like this will test your mettle absolutely. I think this might be the best early situation of this season for them to test their mettle is dealing with Cruz Azul and LAFC, let alone the fact that they have to atone for their mess ups in their last regular season match. Um, oh yes. I did not think that the defensive lapses, the defensive mistakes that I like saw happening in this season would happen this early and in the way that they have. Um, yeah, what I don't know. That's my first thing. I know you really wanted to highlight, Jesus as well as that connection there. Like in that Antigua match early on, I really like that connection. It's not surprising that those two had a connection, right? But just with a club that, like I said earlier, is still, we're far from them hitting on all cylinders, right? Like it's nice to have that
Absolutely.
sort of early connection, that early click to get something going. I don't know. Just as we go into the early takeaway segment, just your some early thoughts from you as we're what, 4 matches in this
Yeah,
season?
yeah. I mean, well, my early takeaway is that, maybe not as much has changed as we thought. This seems like a team with a lot of the same problems, which is that, it struggles to both create and finish chances. It struggles to, it's really good defensively, but will have lapses. And that, it will probably do well against not great teams and then really struggle against great teams. And we're about to see whether that will happen. It was a lot of the same issues as last year.
And I know this is an early takeaways thing, but I mean, where's your concern level here? Are we kind of like wait and see more? Or is it like I need you to prove me wrong this upcoming week? I don't like how do you contextualize the way you feel about these struggles?
I think the difference between this year and last year, then, if we're gonna keep doing that, is that this team has the tools to fix that. I didn't think last year that the team had the tools to fix it. I didn't think it had
Okay.
a
Yeah.
a truly great number nine outside of Jordan Morris, who really was going to be able to finish those chances. I didn't think that there was kind of the defensive maybe nous in order to avoid these issues. Um, on the defensive end, so it's a little bit interesting because all they really brought in was young guys.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but going forward from that back four, there are the tools that if guys aren't firing, this can be fixed. You can rotate, and then
Mhm.
if two or three different groups of guys up front aren't finishing, that's an entirely different issue.
Yeah, and that actually works perfectly to my other little piece I sent you in the sort of notes is the depth thoughts is like, I mean, that is clear and evident, right? Early on into this. I mean, it's not surprising that we've already kind of witnessed that, and I'm sure there'll be guys who surprise us throughout the course of the season that we haven't seen yet. Because I'm mostly talking about the guys that we've seen, being able to in this RSL match, have Georgie Manungu start, I think out on the right wing, and then at halftime say screw it, put in Pedro de La Vega. Like it's fun to me to be able to think about that, right? Like, um, to to have Paul Rothrock starting and obviously understanding that, they're guys like that are maybe starting because of the rotation and not maybe, but are. Um, and bring on Paul Arriola later in the match, having Kalani Kosarienzi in there, and then bring on Jesus Ferreira. Like it's fun to think about this. Um, you know, uh, I am interested to see who maybe does come and surprise us. Throughout the course of the year. Like Stu Hawkins is somebody that like the rumbles about him have been great like the last few years, right? Does he ever get an
Hmm.
opportunity here? I don't know.
I think
Maybe.
it starts getting interesting too because yeah, I was just listening to that post-match press conference from RSL and Brian started talking about a back five against LAFC and how that had been the thing that kind of helped them switch that narrative. And I'm curious if that comes out in any of these these next three matches.
Yeah.
Especially as we're talking about kind of these. I mean, I'd say that the Sounders maybe have like three or four even MLS level center backs they could play there and be comfortable with it. And Yamar, Reagan, Nuhu, and Bell. That I would
Yeah.
be comfortable starting in a back three specifically.
Hmm.
Um, like I wouldn't want to pair Nuhu and Bell in a back four, but I think that any combination of those three guys, I would be comfortable with, and I think it's something that I'm curious if they explore in three matches against teams that are really going to test them defensively.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the three, because again, I know I was freaking out a little bit just about the next week, but obviously you have to play the second match, excuse me, against Cruz Azul on the road, Estadio Olímpico Universitario, sorry. Um, yeah. No, I mean that is something. It's just it is kind of fun to think about that. Like obviously with the younger guys, I talked about Stu Hawkins, but there's Leo Burney and Travian Souza. Don't know when we'll see those guys. I don't. That'll be soon. But yeah, no, I mean, like the again, it goes back to the lineups and like the chess that this club will be able to play. Not only with obviously their players and the pieces they've got there, but how tactically they'll mess with things. Like it's always fun. Like I'm more used to as someone who grew up baseball more. I mean, I played soccer growing up around here at the lovely muddy fields in Seattle. Um, but like tactically, my mind was always better baseball wise.
Hmm.
But doing soccer coverage 5 years we've existed now. Jesus Christ. Just kind of picking up on things and trying to get more into that has been really fun. And this is a team that should be really fun to witness that. Um, yeah, do you have any more just takeaways? Anything else you might have wanted to muse about with Areola and Ferreira, or maybe just Ferreira, or anything else early takeaways wise?
Yeah, I mean, I just think the biggest takeaway is, like you're saying, you can't play chess if you don't play checkers, right? These guys can be amazing dribblers and fantastic. And I think this gets at a little bit of what Brian was talking about with Pedro. Um,
Ah, I see.
is that that they can be some of the greatest dribblers in the world, but if they're not disciplined and they're not locked in, it's not going to matter, and they're going to concede frustrating goals. Um, and that's going to have to be the case because you get mistakes against teams like Charlotte and Antigua and RSL. You don't get mistakes against Cruz Azul and LAFC.
No, no.
So we will really see that.
That's a perfect segue. That's great lob you just threw me there. I could never dunk anyway. But yeah, I said this to Owen as I mentioned earlier in the show, in our notes, thinking about this past week is, again, after that second leg of the Antigua round one matchup in the CCC, Brian's talking about the match. He's talking about the two goals. He's excited for the young man. He'll always say that the young man. Um, but then he mentions the discipline, right? And the flicks over the
Yeah.
head. He said that can't happen. And again, knee-jerk reaction as you're coming off this match. It's a nice win at home. We're doing the post-match, with these CONCACAF games, we've got the mix zone. So I'm trying to make sure I have to not body somebody to get my audio in. Um, like I was kind of like, whoa, like damn, like he just scored two goals. Then you think about it, like, yeah, I mean, this is like you just talking about with discipline, like giving up like these mistakes in any sport, right? And this as another guy who does a ton of sports, like mistakes against quality opponents are not acceptable. Hardly ever will you get a give back, right? And I'm thinking now because I've got to do this in a little bit, but not to cross teams, but when we got women's basketball between Washington and Oregon early in the year, Washington was on the road against a solid Oregon program. Probably should have won that game. Made some mistakes. Can't happen, right? Can't happen. This. Can't happen. Um. So I mean, like, the question would be, is it fair? I don't even think I need to ask you that because I think it is fair, right? Like, at least in my opinion. I'll get your thoughts on it about what he said. Because like I get it. I mean, and maybe this is more Pedro musing. I feel like all three episodes we talked about Pedro, right? And understandable. Um, but it's like he is still relatively young. Um, Jesus, do I have to remember how old he is? Do you remember off the top of your
22.
head? Oh, is that he's younger than me? Jesus Christ. Oh, 24. Okay. Yeah,
Awesome.
still pretty young. I mean, I wouldn't say he's a mature product of a player, right? Like that was, I think, the biggest thing. Even when the rumors about him were there, and Craig Weibel said, "Oh, you guys know better than I do," apparently, at the end of the season press conference when the news was coming out before they officially signed him, like he was pretty raw, like, and I don't think last season the Flashes denied that either. So like I don't know. I think it makes sense. And I think it's a precedent as well for the rest of the club. I mean, a lot of the players that they're playing on a match to match basis are older than him, right? Like a good amount of them at least. Um, but like I think generally I don't think Georgie's ever done anything like that. Just looking at this now, or Paul, but I think it is a good precedent just generally for this club to be disciplined. Because we can talk all we want about the depth, and about, and this is not to pick on it, and to talk about championship pedigree, but if discipline isn't there, like it doesn't matter at the end of the day because we'll continue to get these mistakes. I don't know. Like, do you disagree on it being a fair thing to say about Pedro? What did you think about
No, I
that?
think, I mean, if you look at the guys who have come out of the academy recently and really succeeded, and if you look at the guys like Obed, even like Jackson Reagan,
Yeah.
these are guys who have been immediately successful in this league because they understand how to play here, and then they understand kind of the style, and that's something that Pedro doesn't necessarily get yet because he's not had a ton of time to play. And we talk a lot about, the idea that guys take time to adjust to league. I mean, we talk about all the time when guys go from like Spain to England and the difference there. Um, but I think there's something similar here, and I think that the guys who come out of the academy and have had that chance to learn that style kind of get it. And that's the difference. It's not necessarily a bad thing in a vacuum, as you would say.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
it's not that having that flair is bad. It's that in a team with this style, in a league with this style, where if you're fast and you're precise, you're gonna do so much better than so many teams that will make mistakes. It's just a matter of what's going to be best for this team, and I think it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's yeah. It's again, I said it last week, but it's always great. Like I always feel really vindicated when I do these shows that we do every week, whether it's with Owen or anybody else, because we'll talk about these topics. I'll use it because we're towards the end of this, Owen.
Hmm.
They say shit that just absolutely clicks in my brain. I'm like, yep, that's why we're here. This is why we do this.
Yeah,
So, yeah, no, I mean, again, like I will reiterate, I think this is the team with the best championship opportunity in the city professionally. Um, but they're very early into the season. They're not close to a finished product. And if the work to get there, sorry, I realized I was showing too much of my neck, uh, isn't put in, then they won't be that team. So, yeah, looking
opportunity,
ahead is,
man,
yeah,
opportunity.
opportunity is a beautiful thing.
We'll see. It's
We
going to be
have
a
an
big week.
opport,
It's a big week for this team, dude. Championship
yeah,
opportunity.
yeah. No, I mean, this is way more so than last week because I know last week, like I said, I with championship teams, I like to see them take care of the bugaboo teams, during a championship contender season that they normally wouldn't, right? I would have liked to see Seattle take care of RSL on the road. That is, you know, didn't happen. Like this is a good of a week as any for them, in my opinion, to show that. Like there's a few as I'm looking down the list, like here in May to play LAFC and then Portland. That's a fun one, right? That's a 3 days between those matches. Maybe I should go to that one in Portland. Maybe I'll see Owen there.
Go hang out. It'll be great.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, this is a great early season opportunity to show who the hell you are, right? Like go out and do it. Um, so before I do that though, I will throw this in there because this is a really cool thing that I see. Is that this past week the Sounders announced the this
Hmm.
past week or was it before that? No, it was
Something like
before
that.
that. That's
Yeah.
right. The first match on us fan engagement program. Yeah, damn. Oh, I think this actually got announced the day of the episode that we put out. Yeah. Oh, what are you gonna do? I don't know. I think it's cool. Like first time attendees can receive free tickets to a designated home match during this upcoming season. There's include free tickets, merchandise, and a specially designed welcome experience. I was listening to Hugh Weber. KJR does this President's Day show every year where they have a bunch of presidents of the teams around here talk. And they had Hugh on there, and he was saying like it's not just free tickets. They're gonna like you can specifically pick like the experience you want. It's like whether you want to do ECS or you want to do a family experience. Like at the end of the day, this whole thing is about putting more fans in the seats, and which is a good thing, right? But I can't help but think about how often there was commentary last year, Owen, about well, maybe in the last few years, about the lack of maybe not the lack, but the lesser crowd numbers,
Hmm.
right? Like, I don't know. Do you have any overlying? Yeah, sure. Just general thoughts about, because again, I'm going to use my buzzwords in a vacuum. Great, great program, right? You want to do this sort of thing. I wish the Kraken would do this sort of thing, considering that they've sucked the last 2 years. And those tickets are expensive, right? I don't know if you ever looked at tickets to get into one of those games. They're pretty expensive, right? And especially for a team like that wants to grow their fan base, especially before the Sonics come back. That's a whole other discussion. Um, I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's a great thing. Like the Sounders are a staple in this city as a winning team, right? But they don't get as much shine as your Seahawks, as your Mariners, right? So I don't know. I think this is good all around. I do think it's a little interesting considering all the commentary about the crowds. I don't think it's the primary reason that they did it, but I don't think it was not factor as well.
Yeah, I think it's well executed. I grew up, I'm sure, you did too, going to 40,000, 50,000
Hmm.
crowds. So I mean, it's too bad to not see that anymore. I think it'll be great for this club if more people get it and watch it. And I think the way they did it is well executed. I think, there's stuff they do, like I'm sure like the student tickets
Yep.
that they do have, but that just aren't advertised.
No,
Um,
no.
and yet this is a well advertised, well organized thing. And I think, if it means kids get to go watch guys, do what they want to do, it'll be great. I'm always for that.
Yeah, I think that's well put. I remember, excuse me, the you remember the Obafemi Martins like flick over the keeper's head from a
I
tight
do.
angle?
Oh yeah.
I
Oh
was
yeah.
up in the third level watching that. Like
Yeah.
we don't see the third level open anymore, right? So yeah, no, I mean, I wanted to touch on that because I think it's cool. And then again, generally, like especially because I saw the Kraken last night, and then like you can see when you're up in the Climate Pledge Arena press bridge, you can see the pockets of empty seats. I'm like, that shouldn't happen. Like, even if you're bad, it's just a fun experience. They won last night, so there you go. So yeah, no, I thought that was cool. Okay, now I can actually mention the dates for looking ahead. Um, oops, I deleted the tab because I was looking at the program. That's a great job, Chuck. Um, Cruz Azul comes up first, though. We'll get back into CONCACAF Champions Cup action. Round of 16, leg one of two is in Seattle at Lumen Field. Wednesday, March 5th, 7:30 p.m. kickoff time. It'll probably start more at like 7:35 against Cruz Azul. That's big. I mean, just generally, that's a really fun matchup. I know Paul Arriola was really excited when we got him in the mix zone. He said he wants to play Cruz Azul. Brian Schmetzer gave them a lot of props. So, it'll be really fun. I hope we don't see any mistakes against them. Oh, and if we do, it's gonna be a brutal recap. Um, and then 3 days later, so we stay at Lumen Field. We're having a party at Lumen Field for the next week. The Sounders host LAFC on March 8th at 1:45 p.m., which is a interesting kickoff time.
Matinee,
Uh,
baby.
yeah. I mean, I just think about some of the day games against LAFC in years past. Um, so I guess really
It
quickly,
shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter.
no, what does a successful week look like to you?
I think a success. Let's go 4 points,
Okay.
or let's okay. Let's say 4 points, or let's say being in a reasonable spot, heading down to Mexico, and at least 1 point against LAFC. I think if you come out of this week with no points or with or with a loss against LAFC and a hopeless spot against Cruz Azul, going down there having to play catch up, then that's really disappointing because there's a lot of opportunity here. I think
Yep.
you have to capitalize on at least one of these things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good one. So, all right. Owen,
So
anything you want to talk about before we get out of here?
just that my Ducks are heading up to Seattle here. I saw they were training at that Pretty Storm facility.
Oh,
Makes
really?
me happy.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah.
the color scheme works well with you guys.
It
So
does.
that's the thing is they released these nice everyone watches women's sports shirts, and I like to wear them
Hmm.
except anywhere college because the green and the yellow are far too similar to Oregon colors. But yeah, no, I don't know. It'll be big opportunity is the big word of the week for us. So yeah, we'll get out of here. Again, Owen Murray, Area Sports Network, House of Sounders. I said it right this time.
Yes.
Um, well, I think we'll try to get some friends next week. I know Michael has tried to is not tried to, but
I
he's
love it.
expressed his interest, right? We've got some friends who have expressed interest, and it's always good to get other minds, right? Because I don't
Let's have a
know.
Ducks majority, baby.
No, no, never mind. Never mind. Never mind. All right. Till we see you next week. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Do whatever you can to make today a great day.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey. So where are you going to watch all of the Sounder away games this year?
Away games for the Sounders. Well, since Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that's a great idea. Go Sounders. Hope we see y'all here.